1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 1 through verse 13. We're talking about God's gift of love. This chapter is a continuation of chapter 12, which is about gifts of the Spirit, or the gifts from God. In it, Paul was teaching Corinthians a proper view of how gifts should work. The chapter is about God's gift of love, and Paul showed that love is the foundation of all the other gifts. In other words, if the other gifts are to function in the right way, then we must have the love of God. In Greek texts, the entire chapter references agape love, and in the end, God becomes the main actor rather than man. For us to manifest God's love, we must have it from God. And it should become clear to you that this chapter does not call anyone to love anybody, but describes love for us to understand it. Moreover, the love language here is not human but divine, and mere men are incapable of delivering this love. Therefore, we can assume that this chapter implies that we can exercise God's love or agape love when it is shared to us and flows naturally on the virtue of what we become. It is on the basis of this understanding that I wish to propose to us God's gift of love is foundational, verse 1 through verse 3. It is all goodness, verse 4 through verse 7, and it remains forever, verse 8 through verse 13. God's gift of love is foundational. Now, Paul begins by saying, if you speak in tongues, whether of men or angels, and do not have love, you're just a noise maker. Notice the verse says, and you do not have love. This is the love from God, the agape love, the love of God. It does not say, and you do not love. It says, and you do not possess love. This verse desires that we have love. It does not instruct us to love. Verse 2, anything or anyone is nothing, even if they have these other gifts, like the gift of prophecy. They can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if they have a faith that can move mountains, but do not have love. Notice again that the Bible is talking about and do not have love, does not possess love, the love of God. You are nothing. Even if you enjoy the gifts of prophecy, you can fathom all mysteries and have all knowledge, but lack the love of God, you are nothing. Again, even if you practice charity and self-sacrifice, yet do not have love, you may observe that Paul does not instruct them to practice love, but to have or possess the love of God. You are again nothing, even if I practice the gift of charity and self-sacrifice and do not have the love of God. Among the Kamba people, there is a story of a gentleman who wanted to get married to a beautiful lady whom he had fallen in love with. Unfortunately, he came from a poor background, and the man constantly wept, desiring to marry this girl. And when he went to the girl's parents, they asked him what he possessed, what he owned, whether he had cows, camels, sheep, goats, chicken, doves, in that order, and he said that he had none. And fortunately, because he had nothing, they told him he will not get this girl. Possession, having a possession. When you possess the love of God, then you are able to release it. For you cannot give that which you do not have. Love is a foundational gift, because practicing other gifts without love will amount to nothing. This text reveals that agape love is something we have, is something we get from God. Therefore, we fall into error when we expect godly love from others who do not have it as their possession. We expect them to love us. We expect them to treat us well. We expect them to behave rightly, but they do not have this love of God. And Romans 5:5 tells us that the love of God is poured to us, is poured in our hearts through His Spirit. So when He is poured in us, then we are able to share it. We are able to manifest it to others who are close to us. Therefore, we can also ask God to fill our lives with love, for it is possible. However good they may look, no matter how well they may talk, people who do not know Jesus cannot practice agape love. And some of our frustrations in life arise from a pursuit of things from sources we cannot find them. It's like trying to buy salt from a motor spare parts shop. You cannot get salt from such a shop. Now, we saw that God's gift of love is foundation. Now we want to see that it is all goodness, verse 4 through verse 7. As we discuss this, we notice that these verses describe the nature of love by telling us its do's and don'ts. Now, verse 4 and verse 7 tells us the do's, what love does. Verse 4a tells us that love is patient. You are patient with others. You're able to bear. You can stand their inadequacies, their failures. You bear a little bit. And love is kind. These two were a rebuke to Corinthians who are not patient and kind to one another. And today we can also evaluate ourselves from the viewpoint of this description here. Verse 7, love protects. It always trusts. Love will always trust. It always hopes and always perseveres. It protects, trusts, hopes, and perseveres. And verse 4b, we are told it does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. And verse 5, it does not dishonor others. It doesn't talk negatively, break others, assassinate the characters of others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. People say, he did this to me. This is what he did. This is what. So you have a record of the wrongs that this person has done to you. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. Rejoices with the truth. Out of His great love, Jesus went to the cross on my behalf and your behalf. You need to picture Him there when He had committed no sin and had the power to evaluate, to add power to even make decisions around His arrest and death. He had power to evade death, but He chose the cross for my good and for your good. Can we also get reminded that the entire law can be summarized into one idea, that is love. The summary statement calls us to love God and fellow men. The whole Bible can be summarized into one statement, the statement on love. We are also called not to withhold good from those who to whom it is due when it is in our power to act. You are not to say to your neighbor, come back tomorrow and I give it to you, when you already have it with you. When it comes to doing good, there's no law. That means we can be creative in doing what is right to assist others. We want to conclude this by looking at the last idea, that God's gift of love is foundational, it is all goodness, and it remains forever. Verse 8 through 13. In verse 8 and 9, Paul lists some gifts that will pass away. Prophecy, tongues, knowledge. And he says in verse 9, for we know and prophesy in part. There's no perfection even in the use of the gifts that we have. These verses show how temporal our present states are. We are here now and we will be gone tomorrow. And not only that, the gifts that we enjoy, the gifts of the Spirit, are temporal. Now, some scholars will, there is a debate around cessation and non-cessation of these spiritual gifts. Some point out that prophecies have gone with the apostolic age, and the same is also true with the tongues according to them. Now, you may notice that in these verses, these three gifts are listed together: prophecies, tongues, and knowledge. One wonders why you have to pick one and eliminate it from the others and argue for the cessation of some while leaving knowledge, because we know knowledge is a present possession in our lives today. These verses show how temporal our present states are. But we know with the coming of the perfect, the imperfect disappears. This verse may refer to Christ, who is perfect, verse 10, and complete, and then mean that at his coming all gifts will be rendered unimportant. And Paul gives an example. He says when he was young, he thought, he talked, he reasoned like a baby. But when he became a mature man, he put away childish things and began to think like a mature person. Verse 12 teaches us that we have a future which surpasses our present state. For then we shall know things as they are. We shall know like we are fully known. And in verse 13, these three remain: faith, hope, love. And the greatest of these is love. Remains are parts of what is left after something has been destroyed or is done away with. Like when the eagle eats the bird, you find remains of feathers. And with time, the feathers get destroyed by extremities of weather. And the thing is, we have few things that remain forever. Our lives, besides our lives, there are other few things that remain forever. And according to this passage, love remains forever. It's one of those things that remain forever. Have you ever noticed that anything given to you by God as a way of staying and beating all odds? Is your wife, a job, a friend, land, clothes, money? If it comes from God, it will turn out to be a blessing to you. And these verses remind us that the best love we can enjoy is from God Himself. Even if men have failed you in love, God will not. He is and He will faithfully sustain you in love, to hold you and to continue blessing you in love. The Bible teaches that God is love. 1 John 4:8. It signifies that love is not just an attribute of God, but God's very nature, the essence of who He is. Our God of love. Our God of love. So, may God help us as we practice this gift. May He help us.